Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted and honored to be here, and it is an important moment. It's an important moment to be able to talk about passion, innovation, and ethics, all in one opportunity. But before I do that, I'd like to start by saying that today is the UN designated International Day of Resistance to Violence Against Women. And so every year in this time, we mount that campaign, and it's Stop the Silence. And so I'd like to say, as we go into these 14 days of understanding and using voice, I want to thank the women of the world who are our sentinels for peace. They march in silence. They work daily for the survival of all of us. Their very existence is an act of courage. To thrive is an act of resistance. I honor you, women everywhere. Thank you for creating and sustaining life. I thank the women whose shoulders I stand upon. They are a legion. There are too many to name, but I would not want my ancestors to hear me and not know that I recognize and honor them, both women and men who support women. Ashe. This is an opportunity for me to share with you my passion about my work and how seeking change and inclusion for those historically targeted and currently impacted by unjust social circumstances has shaped my career and my sense of ethical behavior. So what is ethics when you are talking about dismantling oppression or looking at power? It is an opportunity for me to speak about the changes I believe we can co-create for a better future, for indeed a preferred future. So anytime I'm thinking about ethics, I'm also thinking about why I fight for tomorrow. And there she is. So how did I get to this place? I arrived in this state of sustained vigilance and activism by a ways of exclusion and marginality. I worked from a place of deep hurt and invisibility. I wanted to change the ascribed roles that the culture had identified for me as woman and Black. I wanted to change the world. And I often tell people, if you don't want to change the world, you shouldn't have called me. So, knowing that there were ascribed roles, knowing that I knew those roles, knowing that there were triggers in my life that said that this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what you should stop doing, this is what you should never do, women can't. And so that right there put me at the praxis, or I would say the intersection of race and gender. And so understanding that those two things live in all of us and are expanded by any of the other socially constructed identities that we have allowed me to begin to think about what I wanted to do about it. What I found in the early years of my career was a deep well of misunderstanding, abuse of privilege, and power language that interrupted authentic dialogue. I actually found that many of the people whom I trusted and believed showed up unethical because the conversation was always a logical explanation about why something couldn't happen. Everyone wanted to be trusted, but the power people double-crossed the targeted or excluded people regularly and often with impunity. There was so much mistrust across racial and gender boundaries. It was almost an impossible area to negotiate. And there I was. And I determined that I would live. And so my collaboration, if I think about one of the areas that is still a line marker for me, was my collaboration with Dr. Charles Seashore, who was a titan in the field of psychology and organizational development. He and I began discussions and dialogue across boundaries of race and gender, sometimes a true landmine. How does a Black woman confront a privileged and well-respected white male? A titan in my profession, a titan in academia. What was he going to learn from me? And how was I going to learn? And over the 22 years that we worked together, we forged a friendship that was amazing and still remains very important in my life. This was a risky proposition, and it had failed in most cases. As Charlie and I worked on our partnership, I worked on a theory called quadrant behavior theory. And quadrant behavior theory is an experiential opportunity for any of us to take a look at the language we use, the behaviors we engage in, the policies we make, and use ourselves as individuals to interrupt the opportunities for exclusion, oppression, and misuse. Quadrant behavior theory asks us, each of us, to be the change agents we want. So to be the Gandhi of our own lives, to be the person who says, I too speak and stand. And so in that way, quadrant behavior theory validates ethics, and it is innovative because it asks you to look at you. It doesn't tell me to look at you, but it asks you to look at you in community with me, which in itself is novel because we are coming together to be the other that we see. The goal is to experience each other, and the goal is to do three things at one time: to look at our own behavior and use of self, to then begin to look at how we can show up with ethics. And that means that we have to show up trustworthy. Rather than telling someone to trust me, show up trustworthy. And to be very clear about that. Rather than say, trust me, I'm gonna work on this for you. Show up trustworthy. And then tell the truth. And it isn't that you have to tell a truth that is others' truth. Tell your truth. So that when you are working in quadrant behavior and when you are looking at the power language that comes out of each of us from that identity that we have that we often don't work on, don't know about, when we're talking about how we may or may not believe that Phyllis can marry Patricia, or that John can actually love and create and be happy in the world with Jorge, or that the religious communities come together, or that skin color privilege can be collapsed, and that my skin color is just as important as the person who is the fairest of the fair in the room. And so I can be Princess Yasmin on any given day. I can be the one with the silver slipper. And we have to interrupt the assumptions that live in our truth and be able to confront what I'm willing to change about myself. And the other piece that lives in quadrant behavior theory and in this innovative way of looking at self and then looking at self as other and other within self, I know it's a little, but stay with me, is to be transparent. So that, we can interrupt the behaviors. We can actually be our own self-correcting model. It's just amazing what we can do when we navigate the territory of the mind. Because all of this is socially constructed. We made it up, so we can unmake it. And we can stop the perfectly logical explanation of, well, it's nothing I can do. Please. Oh, please. We all can do something. And for me, that's one of the ethical pieces that's so critical, that I can use myself, all of myself, anytime I want to, everywhere I want to, whenever I want to, because it is choice. And what is so amazing for me is that when I choose to be courageous and to thrive as an act of resistance, oh, the places you will see. And some really cool people show up in those places as well. So what does that mean if I am asking others to think about this? It means this. It means that the triple T asks you to tell the truth, to show up trustworthy, and to be transparent. It also says, engage in culture. Engage that cultural membrane that has all of us almost captured in a bubble, because that's what we have to push out on, because it is always pushing in on us. It constricts women, it constricts men, it creates policies that we then look at and say, how did I vote against my own best self-interest? What was I thinking? And so it is an opportunity to exercise that use of self that then asks us, how do I want my future to look? What is the preferred future around peace and reconciliation, around inclusion and equity, and access to opportunities, goods, and services? One of the things I'm very clear about is that when I am engaging in the principles of the theories of quadrant behavior theory, or of appreciative inquiry, or of the triple T, I am very clear that I am my most ethical self. These are the areas of self that you can use to work in quadrant behavior theory or the triple T theory and your preferred future. You have discretionary power. You can do this. You can work to make change in the world. And the last thing I want to say to you as I say thank you very much is believe the girl, listen to the woman. Thank you.